Jim, one last question before we go to our next smooth transition. And in relation to Mid-South and Watts and the last Stampede, because really the Superdome is what put you and the Midnight Express on the map. When did you actually know the gate and the attendance figure? When did you know the walk-up in advance? Like, when did you realize the magnitude of it? Because at that time, it was one of the biggest gates in wrestling history. When did you realize exactly how big it was in relation to the actual event?
That night when Jack Curtis came in and I said, what was the house? Well, no, I mean, they didn't tell guys the advance in those days, like days out from the show. Or at least, I didn't feel it was my place to ask, and nobody was bandying the information around. Every once in a while, on one of these big shows that a territory was running, they would say, holy shit, we've already got fucking, 60 grand in for Cleveland or whatever. But in this case, I just knew this is the fucking Superdome. And I knew that Mid-South Wrestling had run the Superdome in the past numerous times with anywhere from, what was the worst Superdome that had ever been at that point? 10 or 12,000 people? All the way up to 28-something thousand. The most people I think they ever had was 28,000 for one of those early 80s promotions, but the ticket prices were way lower. But
the biggest one was Hayes and the Dog.
Well, no, that was the biggest. That was the biggest gate, but I believe there was one in the.
No, it was the biggest attendance
in the late
too.
70s. Wasn't the one with the Assassin and Rock Hunter and the Angel and Watts and Robley? Wasn't that like a more people? I don't know. Point is, it's splitting hairs. We're talking about it's going to be. We had every reason to believe it's going to be between 15 and 30,000 people. It's just how good is this going to get over? And then also, at that point, I was smart enough to the business to realize that this is not just one of the normal 4 times they run the Superdome every year. This time around, Bill Watts is coming out of retirement. He hasn't wrestled in almost 3 years. The all-time top money-drawing guy in this part of the country, not named Danny Hodge, and the owner of the company, he's putting every bit of promotion into it. So, no, I knew, holy shit. I just didn't know how big it was going to be, or, is this the place that I completely fuck up and everybody suddenly says, shit, he's the shits or whatever. No, I was nervous about that one, but it wasn't like we were every day leading up to it constantly asking, well, how are the ticket sales? How are the ticket sales? We just knew that there was a range that the Superdome was going to be in no matter what. If our shit got over, it was going to be really good. So we did, we had $6,000 or $7,000 less than the Dog and Hayes dog collar match. That's the one town we didn't break the record in. We had the record everywhere else for the last Stampede. But that was still between whoever you talk to, 23 and 25,000 people.
Watts put you guys in a good position right from the start. So obviously he thought a lot of you. Did anything change after the success of the last Stampede? Did he treat you guys any differently after you drew the biggest gates everywhere? I mean, it was the biggest run, the biggest house show run in the history of Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah, well, actually, he was going to get rid of us, according to Dundee, but not in a bad way. Dundee pitched and once again, this is according to Bill. We've never asked Watts, or Bill Dundee, I should say. We've never asked Watts specifically, so were you really going to finish us up? Because, we don't want to start anything.
Wasn't he bringing in the Bruce Brothers to work with you guys?
Well, yeah, they were giving the Bruce Brothers a look, but originally where I was going with that was when, according to Dundee, when Dundee pitched the idea of the last Stampede and the concept of the thing, which is, the Midnight Express gets heavy heat on Bill Watts to the point and busts him open and makes him bleed. And he has to come out of retirement. And the whole thing is humiliate Jim Cornette. So Watts was thinking fairly old school, which is nothing wrong with that, but that's the way that he did. Well, after we've done that, then we've sacrificed the Midnight Express. We've beaten them and we've taken the heat off Cornette. so we'll have to finish them up. And I thought you wanted to do the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. And Dundee said, we're still going to do the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. But after this, he said, we can't do it after this because I have to beat these guys. If I come out of retirement, I've got to beat them. And I've got to fucking do the stipulation with Cornette because that was Memphis. That was straight out of Memphis. Either they would put me in a diaper in the middle of the ring, strip my clothes off, put me in a diaper and feed me a baby bottle, which is what they did in the Superdome. Or they would dress me in my mother's pink dress, which was what happened in Houston and some of the other places. But Watts was not buying that we would keep our heat, and Dundee said, watch. So they started the thing with the Rock and Roll Express in the midnight by having us work on that TV match where we just did like 6 minutes of our stuff, and then the Russians, who the Rock and Roll were working the program with, Nikolai and Darso, jumped in and got a DQ and kicked shit out of him, and we went into the last Stampede. But then as soon as they kept it open, because as soon as we shot the deal for the last Stampede, they also did the, Rock and Roll Face in the Cake and everything. The point is, from the first night of the last Stampede, Watts saw the security being overwhelmed and me having to fight for my life after I left the ring, after he had got juice on Dennis and juice on Bobby and beaten him by pinfall and thrown him out of the ring and stripped my clothes off and either put me in a dress or a diaper and let JYD feed me a fucking baby bottle and then kiss me with milk in his mouth.
Wait, hold on. He was giving you the baby bottle. How did he get milk in his mouth?
He fucking turned his back and squirted the milk in his mouth, fed me the baby bottle, and then when I got rid of the bottle, he'd give me a big fucking kiss and spit milk on me.
Oh.
But anyway, after that, the security are literally being overwhelmed from people trying to take shots at me. I've told a story in Tulsa. That's where Watts had pulled his Rolls Royce in, and Jim Ross was on the hood. Get away from the car, because after I'd run, when they'd overwhelmed the security and I'd just run screaming toward the back, they were throwing bottles and fucking cups of ice and hitting the fucking car as I ran by. But no, we had more heat. Coming out of the last Stampede, we just went right on the thing with the Rock and Roll Express, and we stayed another 7 months in the territory. So he didn't treat us any differently because he did everything he could to fucking put us over at the start. And when he saw that we did that shit and still kept the heat and went right in with the Rock and Roll Express and started drawing more money, that's when we did the thing. We beat the Rock and Roll Express. They went back to Memphis for 90 days, and we went through the Fantastics and the PYTs, Norvell and Coco, and some of the other teams, and then they brought the Rock and Roll Express back, and we did another couple of months with them and put them over in the scaffold matches. And the scaffold matches per capita, except for the last Stampede, were the biggest gates in almost all of those towns as well. We did 90 grand in Houston instead of 102 for the Stampede. That's because the fire marshal was there. Oak City and Tulsa, I believe, did records for the scaffold. But anyway, so he pushed us as hard as you could possibly push somebody at the start, and then he had been honest with us, with our money. So, well, we're going to give you a big push, and if you suck, you'll make 50 grand, and if you set records, you'll make 100 grand. It was basically, you're going to make between $50,000 and $100,000. And we were at the 100 rather than at the 50. Because he wouldn't have done that for the whole year if he didn't like what he was getting back. But then we go to Dallas, and we're just floundered around, and nobody had any direction there that wasn't because everybody that was figured in had a representative in the office. Gary Hart was managing Gang, and he obviously, even though he wasn't nominally in the office at that point, Mantell was the booker. He still had the senior respect. And then Chris and Gino were the boys' arch rivals, so they were going to all the booking meetings, and they were represented. And David Manning, who was to look out for the Von Erichs, and any of the Von Erich boys that wanted to go in were allowed, plus Ken Mantell, plus Bronco Lubitsch, who was one of Fritz's most loyal guys. So there wasn't anybody else going to get fucking featured. at that point, and it was just as I was about to say earlier, the territory was a letdown because Dallas-Fort Worth could do great houses, but the rest of the state of Texas that office controlled, I think the only town that we ran in the state of Texas that even did better than 20 grand that was outside the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex was El Paso, and that's when the Guerrero's dad was still running it. I think we were only there once in 6 months. So Watts would have had all those towns cooking. He would have had them programmed with major cards. He would have been running big buildings. And we just saw a lot of lost opportunity there, and everybody's just kind of floundering around. And so that's why we knew that Crockett was taking off. Once he got because remember, he'd been offering us a spot before he even got the Atlanta TV. Once he got TBS, we're like, we were driving down the road, and Dennis every once in a while would say, on a Saturday, we should be on national TV right now, and we're going to fucking Lawton, Oklahoma. So there's only so long you could take.
You're 1 year in Mid-South. I think between the last Stampede stipulations and the face in the cake and losing your hair to a big razor, you were probably humiliated more in that 1 year than your entire career everywhere else.
Is that a question or a commercial
it was a
transition?
I was wondering if you actually agreed with that or not.
I would agree with that if it'll help get us this commercial done properly.
Well, it had nothing to do with the transition, but I meant to say, Jim, it sounds like in Mid-South and World Class, perhaps you and the Express could have used a good night's sleep and you weren't getting one.
Boy, I'll tell you what, we got more night's sleep in the back of Dennis Condry's van than most of the time in our own beds. However, if we had only had a mattress from the fine folks at Helix Sleep, we would have been rested, refreshed, relaxed, and ready to take on the day in fine fashion. And you can be too, folks. We've been talking about the Helix Sleep mattresses here on the program for quite some time. You don't have to go to a store. You don't have to have 3 idiots with a truck come haul this thing in and lug it up your stairs. It's portable. It's easy. It's good for you. They got a quiz on the website. That website, Helix, Helix, helixsleep.com. They got a quiz on the website. It takes you 2 minutes. You match up your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress they've got for you. Whether you like to sleep on soft, medium, or firm, whether you want a mattress to cool you down, or they've even got plus-size mattresses. Fortunately, I don't qualify for that anymore, but some people do. But you take the quiz, they match you up with the model mattress that you would like according to how you sleep and in what positions, and it's delivered to your door. And it comes in a box that's not unwieldy, but yet normal humans can position it where they'd like it to be, and then you just take it out of the box, take the wrapping off, and whoosh, it comes to life. It's an amazing thing, a miracle to behold, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you, I've done my boarding with the warden. I've lived on the bounty of the county, and I've never had the opportunity to prefer such fine merchandise to you as now with these ties are absolutely silk and only 10 cents each. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's another pitch. Anyway, if you go to helixsleep.com/JCE and take the sleep quiz. They'll match you up to a mattress. They got a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights, risk-free. They'll even pick it up if you don't love it. And if you go to helixsleep.com/JCE, as I mentioned, they're offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners at helixsleep.com/JCE. You will be so comfortable on this mattress, you will never want to wake up. Many people don't.
No, they all wake up.
They certainly
actually, no, they don't, but it has nothing to do with the mattress.
Well, it has nothing to do with the mattress. We'll just do it like that. helixsleep.com.
My God.
/JCE.